Hello everyone, Prime here, and I hope you've had a great day, because today we're going to be covering Freya, her lore, facts about her, and all of that good stuff. In Norse mythology, Freya is usually depicted as a beautiful woman, with golden hair and blue eyes, fair skin, and all of that sort of idealistic, wonderful, perfect depiction of what a woman should essentially be. Freya and her Valkyries emit certain lights from their armor that resulted in the northern lights that we see in the sky today. Also, the Brisingamen's necklace made her pretty much irresistible to any sort of human man, similar to how Aphrodite, and upon seeing her, her beauty just makes her so irresistible that you couldn't just help but fall for her. It's a similar deal with Freya, provided that she has the necklace with her. You see, this one time, Freya discovered 4 dwarves called North, South, East, and West, crafting a necklace at the time, and either Freya needed a place to stay and so she just sort of stayed overnight, or she instantly discovers the necklace and wants it. The point is that yes, she really does want the necklace, and she offers them an absurd amount of gold for the necklace, but the dwarves refuse to sell it for gold, so Freya ends up having to pay for it some other way. And she does this. Loki happens to spy on Freya and knows this other way that she pays for the necklace. So he tells either Freya's husband, being Oda, or tells Odin himself. Freya goes off to Odin to seek sort of forgiveness because she feels pretty bad about the whole thing. Odin forgives her, but when she returns to her husband, she finds him gone. She sort of scours Midgard looking for her husband, whilst crying tears of solid gold. Freya is a fairly impulsive goddess. She pretty much does a lot of things that she wants to do, sort of whenever she wants to do them. It's quite unlike a lot of other goddesses where they're quite restricted in sort of what they do. She is a very free goddess, I feel like. Which brings me on to some of her duties. Freya oversees her own hall, and receives half of the fallen warriors that Odin doesn't take within his halls in Valhalla. She's also the ruler of the Valkyries, who personally go down to the earth and collect the souls of the fallen warriors personally and bring them to Freya's hall. Or can also help to bring these fallen warriors to Odin's hall as well. Now see, the nice thing about Freya doing this is that Freya also offers to allow the warriors to take their wives to her hall with them so that they can remain sort of happy and pleased with themselves, I guess. With her brother Freya, she resides over untamed nature, which is fairly interesting, and she's also a goddess of battle, love, fertility, and death. Freya also is apparently credited with teaching certain magics to the Aesir gods. This was in fact a result of the Vanir-Aesir god war. The war became a stalemate at some point, both sides realizing that they just couldn't win through the fighting, so they issued a truce. And as was customary in Norse mythology, both sides offered hostages as a sign of goodwill. So the Aesir gods offered Mimir and Honir, the Vanir gods offered Freya, her brother, and their father, I believe. Freya was honored as a priestess among the Aesir gods and was tasked with teaching magics to the Aesir gods. Mimir and Hodir weren't treated as nicely as this, and eventually Mimir's head is chopped off. But, you know, that's just business as usual. She also possessed a magic feather dress or cloak, depending on the myth, that allowed her to fly through the air. And during one particular myth involving Idun, she lends Loki certain feathers that give him the ability to fly or to transform into a hawk. And talking about relationships, she must have been highly respected by Odin and the rest of the Aesir gods, as she was a fairly significant figure to the Vanir gods. She was said to have some sort of relationship with Odin, and both gods sort of had many relationships. There's another goddess, Frigg. It's debated as to whether Friday is named after Freya as Freya's Day or Frigg as Frigg's Day, because both goddesses originate from an older Germanic god. Also, thanks to the similarities between Odin and Freya's wife Oda, and the fact that the only major difference between their name is that Odin is spelt with a certain masculine section on his name, or at least the Old Norse version of his name has a little masculine attachment. Thanks to that, there's a profound difference between their names, but thanks to that being one of, if not the only majorly significant difference differences between their names. There are arguments that these two gods are one and the same, which of course changes the story that I told you earlier, if that's actually the case. But of course, the biggest argument against them being the same god is the fact that with Freya, Odir had one child versus Odin having several of very significant children, such as Thor, for instance. If Odir truly was Odin, surely he would be mentioned more so with these children, or at least credited with having more children than just the one that he had. When it came to Ragnarok, she stood with Odin, and she was one of the few gods who actually survived Ragnarok as well, and continued into the next cycle. It's also implied that she's one of the more powerful goddesses in Norse mythology, and outright just one of the more powerful gods, possibly even being even more powerful than Odin himself, though that's debatable. When it comes to the giants, dwarves, and any sort of races that might not be aesthetically amazingly pleasing, she's sort of repulsed by them. For example, when a wall builder came to sort of rebuild the wall of Asgard, and it became clear that Freya may in fact actually have to marry this sort of giantly wall builder, Freya wept tears of solid gold, or liquid gold, or whatever type of gold she was weeping, because she was just disgusted by the thought of having to marry a giant, or just this disgusting wall builder. Or rather, stonemason, I suppose is the proper term. And so there's a good chance that she's not exactly a fan of Ymir, or Fafnir, or any other giant that would be in Smite, for that matter. So a lot of the mine gods would probably also get a cold shoulder from her, and any sort of dwarves, that's Vamana for instance, probably she wouldn't have the best of relations with him either. In fact, the only reason why she even interacted with the dwarves that I mentioned in the prior story in the way that she did was purely for the necklace and not for the dwarves themselves. Her desire was driven purely by her need for that necklace. And moving on to Thor, his antics really annoyed her, such as the time that he demanded that she marry a giant so that he could reclaim Mjolnir, and she refused. Thor had to pretend to be Freya in order to get his hammer back. That's a pretty long story that I've covered in one of Loki's mythology videos. Thor also seems to just generally annoy her, such as the time that Thor disturbs her sleep just before he's about to go fishing for a sea dragon. And we all know how serious a crime disturbing someone's sleep is. But just before he begins actually fishing, he's disturbed by a singing cat that sings to his children. Eventually, Thor demands that the cat be silent. The cat refuses and states that Thor has no idea how to raise children, and says that he would stop singing should Thor be able to find a suitable person able to raise the kittens. So Thor brings the kittens to Freya, and Freya is delighted because of the fact that she has these oh so adorable kittens now to raise, and she used these blue kittens, in fact, to pull her chariot across the sky. Ultimately, I guess they're fairly neutral towards each other, though 9 times out of 10 I'm sure Freya was fairly annoyed by Thor, if nothing else. But Freya does indeed have a true love, and his name is Oda. After their marriage, he disappears, and Freya dons her cloak full of feathers that allows her to fly across the sky. Now, eventually, she does track down her former husband, and he's become a sea monster. So Freya stays by his side, does not abandon him, and comforts him. And eventually he's slain by either another god or a hero of some sort, and Freya goes to confront her husband's killer, but eventually forgives him before killing him. Doesn't actually kill the killer, but there you go. And Freya's husband is taken to Valhalla, and she was gifted a boar with golden bristles. So she really does like pigs and boars. But yes, that'll do it for the video. I hope that you enjoyed, and if you did, go ahead and leave a like. And if you're new to the channel and want to see more content like this, go ahead and subscribe. Of course, there'll be a poll for you to vote in. Of course, there'll be a poll for you guys to vote in and decide which gods shall be next. I believe we've got Guan Yu, Shin-Chan, Poseidon, perhaps Zeus, Kronos, and maybe a few others that I'm forgetting to choose from. So we'll see what ends up being in the cards. But until the next video, have a very good day. I have been Prime, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.